Hello. Recently, I lost a meaningful theatrical connection of 12 years standing thanks to a ruthless change of policy by our local paper's new editor. And to console myself, I read this book by Moss Hart, Act 1, about his beginnings as a successful Broadway playwright back in the day, as they say. And the section I'm about to read to you describes the opening night of a play he created with George S. Kaufman. The opening night on Broadway with it had many tryouts and rewrites and so on, as are referred to in this passage, and hopefully this will give you a sense of the excitement, the agony, and hopefully, in the end, the joy and satisfaction of a theatrical production. So I'm now beginning to read the passage. Not until I heard Max Siegel's voice saying to the stage manager, "They're all in, take the house lights down," could I bring myself to move. I walked through the past door into the theatre, and in the half-light I peeked through the curtains below the stage box to steal a quick look at the audience. That foolish and hopeful look a playwright sometimes takes in those last few moments before the curtain rises. What he sees is almost always the same sea of faces, the same well-wishers and ill-wishers, the same critics, the same agents, the same columnists, the very same first-night faces and exactly the same seats they have always sat in. The old faces a little older, the young faces a little stonier. And why he expects some miracle to have changed them into tender and benevolent faces, I do not know, but he does. Perhaps the miracle lies in the fact that he should persist in thinking that tonight, for this opening, the miracle will have occurred. But as he anxiously scans row after flinty row, he sees that no miracle has taken place, except the dubious one that the same people have managed to be sitting in the same seats again, and he closes the curtains hastily. No group of people can look as hard and unyielding as first nighters seem to look, viewed from that vantage point. Even the faces of one's friends seem to be set in concrete, and each critic, as he spots him, appears to be hewn from the same block of granite as his heart. I fled up the aisle and almost collided with Mr. Kaufman, whose pacing had already begun. He muttered something that might have been either "good luck" or "God damn it," and was on his way again. Applause turned me toward the stage. The curtain was rising, and Hugh O'Connell and the set were receiving their regulation round of applause. Jean Dixon made her entrance, the applause swelled, and as it died down, she spoke the opening lines. I held my breath to wait for the first laugh, which always came on her second or third line. No sound, however, appeared to be issuing from her lips. One could see her lips moving, but that was all. No sound came forth. Hugh O'Connell spoke, but no sound came from his lips either. They seemed to be two people talking to each other behind a glass wall. The audience began to murmur and turn to each other in their seats. My heart skipped a beat, and I looked wildly towards Mr. Kaufman. He stood frozen in his tracks, staring at the stage. Jean Dixon and Hugh O'Connell were stalking steadily on, unaware that they could not be heard, but aware that something was gravely wrong. For the murmur from the audience was loud enough for them to hear it now, and I could see Jean Dixon's hand shake as she lit a cigarette. Still no sound came from the stage, and in the silence, a man's voice from the balcony rang out loud and clear. "It's the fans! Turn off the fans!" These were the fans they used in the days before air conditioning to try and cool a crowded, busy theatre such as this one was in Broadway in 1930. The audience broke into relieved laughter and applause. I saw Mr. Kaufman make a dash for the past door that led backstage, but before he was halfway down the aisle, the fans on either side of the proscenium began to slow down. In the opening night excitement, the electrician had simply forgotten to turn off the fans, one of those simple little opening night mistakes that lessened the lifespan of everyone concerned by 5 or 10 years. The nightmare had lasted no more than a minute in all, but it is not one of the minutes I would choose to live over again. Invariably, when the horrors of this kind occur, the audience behaves admirably, and they did so now. They not only applauded that unknown hero in the balcony, but they rewarded Jean Dixon with a generous round of applause when she went back and started the scene all over again. She could not, of course, go off the stage and re-enter, but aware that not a word of the scene had been heard, she calmly took a puff or two of her cigarette waited until the fans had stopped, and began the scene anew. From that moment onward, both play and audience took on something of the quality of fantasy. It was being played and received like a playwright's dream of a perfect opening night. The performance was brilliant, and the audience matched it in their response. One of the theatre's most steadfast beliefs is that there is never again a sound of trumpets like the sound of a New York opening night audience giving a play its unreserved approval. It is a valid belief. Bitter words have been written down about the first night audience, but the fact remains that there is no audience ever again like it. No audience as keen, as alive, as exciting, and as overwhelmingly satisfactory as a first night audience taking a play to its heart. It can unfurl the tricolour of its acclamation and make flags seem to wave from every box, just as in reverse its descent can seem to dangle the Jolly Roger from a centre chandelier and blanket the auditorium in leaden disapproval. The sound of the audience's approval was unmistakable, even to my own anxious ears. At the end of each act, the applause broke before the curtain had quite touched the floor. The second act played better than the first, and the third act, that vulnerable, exasperating third act, the act which had held the play in jeopardy for so long, seemed to have written itself, so effortlessly and winningly was it playing. It was almost irritating to watch it play with such inevitable rightness and ease, remembering the bitter struggle it had given us. The final lines of the play were being spoken now, and then it came, an explosive crash of applause as the curtain fell. It came like a thunderclap, full and tumultuous. I tried to disengage myself and measure the kind of applause it was, but I could not. It sounded like hit applause to me, but it was keeping up. Except for one or two critics with early deadlines dashing up the aisle, the entire audience was remaining in its seats and keeping the curtain going up and down. The cast stood bowing and smiling. They had each taken their individual calls, and the entire company was lined up on the stage. No other calls had been set, and the company was bowing and smiling somewhat awkwardly now, in the way actors do when they are no longer in the frame of the play. But still the applause showed no sign of diminishing. To my amazement, I saw Mr. Kaufman step forward and signal the stage manager to keep the curtain up. I stared at the stage in disbelief. He was about to do something so implausible that I could hardly conceive of his doing it. He was about to make a curtain speech. I could not believe my eyes. More than once he had expressed his scorn for authors who made opening night speeches, and he had expressed it in such scathing terms that it seemed impossible that he was about to make one himself. The audience seemed almost as surprised as I was. The applause stilled immediately, and an eager shushing took its place. He came forward, another step, peered at them over his glasses, and waited for complete quiet. "I would like the audience to know," he said carefully and slowly, "that 80% of his play is Moss Hart." That was all. He stepped back and signalled the stage manager to lower the curtain. The audience sat bewildered for a full moment and then broke into perfunctory applause. They had expected a witty speech in the manner of a play, or in the caustic tradition of George S. Kaufman. Their disappointment and their lack of interest in what he said was clear, but they obligingly applauded for another curtain. I stood staring at the stage and at George Kaufman. Generosity does not flower easily or often in the rocky soil of a theatre. Few are uncorrupted by its ceaseless warfare over credit and billing, its jealousies and envies, its constant temptations toward pettiness and mean-spiritedness. It is not only a hard and exacting profession, but the most public one as well. It does not breed magnanimity, and unselfishness is not one of its strong points. Not often is a young playwright welcomed into it with a beau geste as gallant and selfless as the one who had just come over those footlights. A hand was tugging up my sleeve, and Max Siegel was whispering some words in my ear, but I moved quickly away without answering. I did not trust my voice, and I was ashamed to have him see that my eyes were blurred. So that was Moss Hart's first successful night on Broadway back in 1930. Thank you.